Welcome back to the HBCUHeritageHome.com, the place for all things Black genealogy books. Given that genealogy tourism is both a research method and the destination for Black genealogy books, in this discussion, we review global slavery tourism to start a full examination of these sites' identity-shaping roles in African American descendants' lives for generations to come. You probably have seen advertisements such as this one from Ancestry.com showing people choosing travel destinations based on ancestry. It could be a U.S. plantation site where ancestors worked as slaves or sharecroppers, an African or Caribbean country site based on DNA matches, or an archive known to house ancestral stories. Returning to African homelands of our ancestors can be a beautiful experience. And many African Americans are availing themselves of this experience. Here's just one example. Ashley Milton has a viral TED Talk. We won't play it now, but just keep that in mind. It's something you might want to look at as you think about the many African Americans who have gone to various African countries and found welcoming arms, found success, found wonderful connections with ancestors, and they actually recommend the experience. My family and I do genealogy tourism in the United States. We go to places that our formerly enslaved ancestors grew up in, where they married, where they went to school, things like that. Here we are pictured in 2004 outside the state capitol building in Montgomery, Alabama, which is just outside of Prattville, Alabama, where my great-great-grandparents met and married in 1869, and which we think of as the start of our current family. It is indeed our genealogy research that is fueling this heritage tourism. It's not just DNA testing, it's all kinds of information we're finding out about our ancestors and then using that information to steer us to certain heritage tourism sites so that we can learn more about them, celebrate them, perhaps reenact some of their life experiences, honor them, and again, get inspiration so that we can achieve things in our lives by their inspiration. Searching for information about our ancestors is now such a common reason for heritage tourism that the practice is actually called genealogy tourism, roots tourism, legacy tourism, diasporic heritage tourism, diaspora tourism, and many other terms that connected to our family heritage. Scholars make it quite clear that the stories heritage tourism providers present to you at these sites do indeed significantly shape self-identity. It's what particular stories the sites present. It's how they present the stories. It's where you are in the story. All of these things, again, scholars have shown have a significant, not minor, impact on our self-identities. So let's talk about the background of global slavery tourism, the methodology I use to study this form of travel, what I find in this research, and again, the implications for all of us. That'll be the time we can engage in Q&A. First, the background. Global communication is a wide field that includes diasporic communication, which is the communication that people engage in as they try to connect with places their ancestors came from or form new communities in new environments. And of course, the African diaspora is a subset of other diasporas overall. And the African American diaspora is both the largest and the most significant African diaspora with respect to global slavery tourism, because this is the African diaspora group that has the most resources for this kind of travel. Resources in terms of leisure time and disposable income. So again, when people think about diasporic communication, and specifically when African Americans do so, they're thinking about where is my homeland, and in this case, is it an African country? Is it one of the countries to which enslaved people were brought? Who am I? Am I a citizen of the country the ancestor, as far back as I know, came from? Am I a person of the country that I've developed in after my ancestors were enslaved there? And who are ancestors? Are they the people who shaped my life from 100 years ago, from 200 years ago, from 300 years ago, etc.? So those are the kinds of questions that global communication asks with respect to the African American diaspora. A host of African American scholars engage in this work, trying to ferret out what it is about these questions that make us travel to find more about our ancestors, what it is about the identities we are shaping from our near and far ancestors, what it is about ourselves that drives the direction our genealogy tourism takes. He, for instance, took a DNA test, found what African country his markers most matched with, and then became rather despondent that he didn't know anything about that area. And again, started thinking more about, is that really where his identity comes from, and those kinds of questions. So diasporan communication is a growing field, and African Americans are indeed availing our knowledge and research skill in this area. One of the foundational scholars in diasporan theory is John Buderig. He explains to us that there are basically two ways that people whose ancestors are from a particular place think about identity shaping and their connection with those places. One is what he calls the classical theory of diaspora, and that is the one in which the people really are connected to that land of the ancestors. So it's a homeland focus, that classical theory of diaspora. Then there's what's called the social condition theory of diaspora. That's more of a host-led theory, where the identity connection for people comes largely from the place they live now, not necessarily the place from which ancestors came centuries ago. So from Jackson and Buderick and others, we get theories to use as lenses, as ways to think about what's going on with global slavery tourism or genealogical tourism in general. We're in a cultural moment right now when the United Nations Educational, Scientific, and Cultural Organization, UNESCO, a significant promoter of globalization and global communication, is more aggressively than ever advocating tourism at the world's hundreds of slavery heritage sites. It's doing so as part of its (2015 to 2024) International Decade for the People of African Descent. During this decade, UNESCO's theme is People of African Descent, Recognition, Justice, and Development. So in theory, people are to go to these slave-related heritage tourism sites around the world and see people of African descent recognized, to perhaps get incensed about the injustice so that you will then fight for justice, and development. In a sense, the development is to come from people being inspired by behaviors of their ancestors so that they then will act in amazing, inspiring ways themselves. So that is UNESCO's current contribution to global slavery tourism. Part of UNESCO's promotion of global slavery tourism is its publication in 2018 of the book titled Legacies of Slavery, a resource book for managers of sites and itineraries of memory. This book is a set of comparative case studies from more than 50 global slavery tourism sites around the world. And it essentially is an advice book. It explains to site managers how to talk to visitors who are from a wide variety of backgrounds and have a wide variety of degrees of understanding and connection with and interest in slavery. So basically, the advice is to take into account the sensitivity of this painful memory. It labels slavery as a painful memory across the board, and that there are people from around the world who are seeking to know more about it. Again, when people of African descent go to global slavery tourism sites, they're not so much seeking to learn more about slavery in general. They've got a good general sense of that, but really are going to get something about their specific ancestors. So there's a difference in reasons people go to these sites. Some people are looking for ancestral specific information, and some people are looking for sort of general understanding about the world they live in kinds of information. And then the last thing in terms of background, it's important to understand that UNESCO has been building up this global slavery tourism promotion for years. It really started back in 1994 with the launch of the Slave Route Project. It's a very innovative project that includes researchers from all around the world, including data as they encounter it, so that all information about slave routes, slave destinations, things about the people who operated the ships, etc., is all collected in a single place.